The Great Wall of China, a long walk through history. Hello and welcome. Today we have a story about a long walk on a very famous wall. It is a story about a young man, old stones, and the long story of a country. Before we start, I have a question for you. What is a special or famous place in your country? It can be a building, a river, a mountain, or anything else. Please tell me about it in the comments below. I would love to read your answers. Now, let's begin our story. Li was a young man who lived in a very big city. The city was full of tall buildings, bright lights, and fast cars. Every day, Li woke up to the sound of the city. He went to work in a tall building. He ate his food in busy places. He talked to people on his phone. His life was fast and modern. But sometimes, Li felt that something was missing. He felt like he was a small boat in a very big ocean. He did not feel connected to anything. He knew about the history of his country, China, but it felt like a story from a book. It did not feel real. Li's grandfather lived in a small, quiet house, not far from the city. His grandfather was a very old man. His face had many lines. Each line was like a small story. His hands were old, but they were strong. He liked to drink tea and sit in his garden. One day, Li went to visit his grandfather. They sat in the garden. The grandfather poured tea into 2 small cups. The old man looked at Li. He said, "You look tired. The city makes you tired." Li nodded. "Yes, I am tired. Everything is so fast. I feel lost." His grandfather smiled a little. He looked at the sky. "When I was a young boy," he said, "I did not have a big city. I had hills and a river, and I had the wall." "The Great Wall?" Li asked. He had seen the Great Wall on television and in pictures. It was a famous place for tourists. People from all over the world came to take photos. "Yes," his grandfather said. "But for me, it was not just a place for pictures. It was alive. My father told me stories. He said the wall has a memory. It remembers the wind, the rain, the sun. It remembers the hands of the men who built it. Each stone has a story." Li listened. This was different from the history books. His grandfather was not talking about kings or big fights. He was talking about stones and hands. "The wall is very long," the old man continued. "It goes over mountains and through valleys. It is like a long stone river. People think it is just one wall, but it is many walls, built by many different people over a very long time. It was built to protect." Li looked at his grandfather's hands. He thought about the hands that lifted the stones to build the wall. Were they like his grandfather's hands? "You should go see it," his grandfather said. "Don't go with the tourists. Find a quiet part. Walk on it. Sleep near it. Listen to it." That night, Li went back to his fast city. But his mind was quiet. He thought about his grandfather's words. A long stone river. A wall with a memory. The idea grew in his heart. It was a small seed at first. Then it grew into a big tree. He would do it. He would walk the Great Wall. He wanted to find that connection he was missing. He wanted to hear the stories in the stones. Li spent the next few weeks preparing. He bought a good pair of walking shoes. He bought a strong backpack, a warm sleeping bag, and a small tent. He put maps, a water bottle, and simple food in his bag. he did not take much. He wanted to feel the walk, not carry a heavy bag. He told his boss he needed to take a long break from work. His boss was surprised. His friends were surprised. "Why do you want to do that?" they asked. "It's just an old wall." Lee did not know how to explain it. He just said, "I need to go for a long walk." Before he left, he visited his grandfather again. He showed him his backpack and his shoes. The old man touched the backpack. He smiled. "Good," he said. "Walk slowly. Look at the small things. The sky, the plants on the wall, the shape of the stones, and feel the ground under your feet. The wall will talk to you if you listen." Lee promised he would. He felt a little nervous, but also very excited. He was leaving his fast, modern life behind. He was going to walk into history. He was going to walk on the long stone river. Lee took a bus far away from the city. The bus ride was long. He watched the tall buildings become small houses. Then the houses became farms and fields. Then the fields became hills. After many hours, the bus stopped in a small town. This town was not a famous tourist place. It was just a quiet town near the mountains. From the town, he could see it. On top of the green and brown hills, there was a line. It was like a long grey snake, sleeping on the back of the mountains. It was the Great Wall. It looked different from the pictures. It was not perfect. It was old and broken in some places. But it looked strong. It looked real. Lee felt a strange feeling in his chest. He was finally here. He started walking from the town towards the hills. The air was clean and fresh. It was very different from the city air. The only sounds were the wind and the birds. It took him an hour to reach the base of the wall. He found a place where he could climb up. The stones were big and heavy. He put his hand on one of them. It was warm from the sun. He thought about his grandfather's words. This stone had a story. He climbed onto the wall. He was standing on top of history. He looked to his left. The wall went on and on, over the hills, until he could not see it anymore. He looked to his right. The wall went on and on, in the other direction, until it disappeared. He was all alone. There were no other people. There were no shops selling water or hats. There was only Lee, the wall, the sky, and the endless line of hills. He took his first step, then another, and another. His long walk had begun. The first day was hard. The wall was not a flat road. It went up very high, and then it went down very low. The steps were old and not even. Some were broken. Lee had to watch his feet carefully. The sun was hot. Soon he was sweating. His backpack felt heavy. He walked for hours. He saw many watchtowers. These were tall, square buildings on the wall. They were spaced far apart. His grandfather told him that soldiers used to stand in these towers. They would look out for enemies. If they saw enemies, they would make a fire with a lot of smoke. The soldiers in the next tower would see the smoke and make their own fire. The signal would travel very fast along the wall, like a message. Lee went inside one of the watchtowers. It was empty. The stone walls were cold inside. There were small windows. He looked out of a window. He could see for many, many miles. He tried to imagine being a soldier, standing here every day, in the hot sun and the cold winter. It must have been a lonely life. In the late afternoon, he felt very tired. His legs hurt. He found a flat, grassy spot near a broken part of the wall. This would be his camp for the night. He took off his backpack. It felt so good to be free of the weight. He set up his small tent. He ate some bread and dried fruit. He drank a lot of water. The sun began to go down. The sky turned orange, then pink, then dark blue. The colors were more beautiful than any city lights. As the sky got dark, the stars came out. There were so many stars. In the city, you could only see a few. Here the whole sky was full of them. They looked like tiny bright lights scattered on a dark blanket. Lee lay in his sleeping bag. He could hear the sound of insects. He could feel the cool night air. He was tired, but he was not scared. He felt peaceful. He was sleeping next to the Great Wall, under a sky full of stars. He thought about the thousands of people who had lived and worked and slept here before him. He felt like he was a small part of a very long story. He closed his eyes and fell asleep. Lee woke up early the next morning. The sun was just starting to rise. The light was soft and yellow. He made some hot tea on his small stove. The warm cup felt good in his hands. He ate his breakfast, sitting on the wall, watching the world wake up. The hills were covered in a light fog. It looked like a soft white blanket. After he packed his tent, he started walking again. His legs were still a little sore, but he felt stronger today. He was getting used to the rhythm of walking. Step, step, step. Breathe in, breathe out. His mind became quiet. He was not thinking about work or the city. He was just walking. He paid attention to the small things. Like his grandfather said, he saw small tough flowers growing in the cracks between the stones. He saw lizards sunbathing on the warm rocks. He saw a big bird flying high above him, making circles in the blue sky. The wall itself was full of details. In some places, the stones were smooth. In other places, they were rough. He could see marks on them. Maybe these marks were made by the tools of the builders a long, long time ago. He ran his fingers over the marks. It was like touching the past. For 2 more days, Lee walked alone. He saw no one. The world was just him and the wall. Sometimes he felt lonely. The silence was very big, but he also felt free. He could sing if he wanted to. He could stop and rest whenever he wanted. He was the king of his own small world. The weather changed on the 4th day. Dark clouds covered the sky. The wind became strong and cold. Then the rain started. It was not a soft rain. It was a hard, heavy rain. Lee found shelter in another old watchtower. He sat inside, watching the rain fall. The world outside turned grey. The rain hit the stones of the tower, making a loud, steady sound. Lee felt very small. The storm felt very big and powerful. He ate his lunch in the watchtower, waiting for the rain to stop. He thought about going back. His warm, dry apartment in the city seemed very far away. This walk was much harder than he expected. But then he thought of his grandfather, and he thought of the men who built the wall. They worked in the hot sun and the cold rain. They did not stop. Their story was a story of not giving up. He said to himself, "I will not give up either." The rain finally stopped in the afternoon. The sun came out. The wet stones of the wall shined in the sunlight. The air smelled clean and fresh. Everything looked new. Lee felt new too. He put on his backpack and started walking again. He felt stronger now. The rain did not defeat him. On the 5th day, Lee saw something different. Down in the valley next to the wall, there was a small house with a small farm around it. Smoke was coming from the chimney. Someone lived there. As Lee got closer, he saw an old man working in a vegetable garden. The man had a kind face, like his grandfather. He looked up and saw Lee on the wall. He smiled and waved. Lee felt a little shy, but he waved back. He climbed down from the wall and walked towards the house. "Hello," the old man said. His voice was warm. "Are you walking the wall?" "Yes," Lee said. "You must be tired and hungry," the man said. "Come, have some tea with me." Lee was very grateful. He followed the man to his small, simple house. The man's wife, an old woman with a kind smile, gave him a cup of hot tea and a bowl of hot noodles. It was the best food Lee had ever tasted. They did not talk much. The old man and woman did not ask many questions. They just shared their food and their home with him. Lee learned that their family had lived in this valley, next to the wall, for a very, very long time. For them, the wall was not a tourist place. It was their neighbor. It was part of their daily life. It protected their small valley from the strong winds that came from the north. After an hour, Lee thanked them and said goodbye. That simple meeting made him very happy. He was not completely alone. There was kindness in this quiet place. He understood that the story of the wall was not just about soldiers and kings. It was also about the simple people who lived next to it, generation after generation. Lee continued his walk for many more days. Each day was a little different. Some days were sunny and easy. Some days were cloudy and hard. He saw parts of the wall that were well preserved. He also saw parts that were just a pile of rubble, slowly being taken back by nature. He learned to read the weather in the sky. He learned which plants were safe to eat. He learned that he was much stronger than he thought. One afternoon, he was resting on a high part of the wall. The view was amazing. He could see the wall twisting and turning over the mountains in both directions. It looked like it went on forever. He thought about the name of the wall in Chinese, Changcheng. It means long wall. It was a simple name, but a true name. It was so long, and it took so long to build. Not 1 year, not 10 years, but hundreds and hundreds of years. He felt a deep respect for the people who built it. They did not have big machines. They had only their hands, their backs, and simple tools. They carried heavy stones up steep mountains. It was incredibly difficult work. Why did they do it? They did it to protect their homes, their families, and their way of life. The wall was a big line they drew on the earth. On one side was home. On the other side was the unknown. Lee finally understood. The wall was not built with just stone and earth. It was built with hope and fear. It was built with the love of family and home. That was the memory in the stones. That was the story his grandfather wanted him to hear. After almost 2 weeks, Lee reached the end of his planned walk. He arrived at a town that was a more popular tourist spot. He saw other people on the wall for the first time. They were laughing, taking pictures, and talking loudly. It felt strange. For so long, the wall had been his quiet friend. Now he had to share it. He watched the tourists. They walked on the wall for a short time, took their photos, and then left. For them, it was just a place to visit for an hour. They did not see the small flowers, the marks on the stones, or the way the light changed on the hills. They did not feel the wall's long, slow heartbeat. Lee did not feel angry. He felt a little sad for them. They were seeing, but they were not understanding. He found a quiet spot away from the crowds. He sat down on the ancient stones one last time. He looked out at the mountains. He was a different person now. The city boy who felt lost was gone. In his place was a man who had walked through history, a man who felt the ground under his feet, a man who felt connected to the long story of his people. He took out his phone. He had not used it for 2 weeks. He called his grandfather. "Hello," the old man's voice said. "Grandfather, it's me, Lee." "Ah, Lee, where are you?" "I am on the wall," Lee said. His voice was full of emotion. "I am at the end of my walk." There was a moment of silence. Then his grandfather said, "Good. And did it talk to you?" Lee smiled. He looked at the long stone river that stretched across the land. "Yes," he said. "It did. It told me many things." Lee stayed in that town for one night. The next day, he took a bus back to the city. When he saw the tall buildings and the fast cars, it felt like a different world. It was his world, his home. But he saw it with new eyes now. He knew he would go back to his job, to his apartment, to his modern life. But something inside him had changed forever. He had found a quiet place inside himself. He could close his eyes and still feel the sun on his face, the wind in his hair, and the solid stone of the Great Wall under his feet. He knew that history was not just in books. It was in the land, in the stones, and in the stories we tell. And he had his own story now, a story of a long walk on a very old wall, a story that connected him to his grandfather and to all the hands that built that long stone river across the mountains. He was no longer a small boat in a big ocean. He was part of the river. Thank you for listening to our story. If you enjoyed it and want to hear more stories to help you learn English, please subscribe to our channel. We look forward to seeing you in the next video.